I had some morphine when I was in the hospital, and I don't know. It was
Yeah, it's pretty great.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he sleeps
See, I think there's people that think it's really great, and for me, it was just like,
What? Annie Duke, welcome to Groove Jams.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for sitting in with us. We appreciate it,
Okay.
especially from the summer house. This is really, really kind of you. So
And
we've
just
got some.
so for everybody who's listening, just know
Yeah.
that Kurt and I are not drunk, but Tim is.
Oh, no.
he's on the way, folks.
He's
He's
on the
getting on
way.
the way.
Like, look at this. For they can't. Oh, my God. All
That's
right, you
not a
guys.
near beer. I've got water myself.
Okay.
I'm going to be on the ball for this.
All right. Well, we want to ask some questions of you just to get some quick feedback, and I want to start with a question that says, if you knew that you were going to live 1,000 years, what would you change in your life today?
If I knew I was going to live 1,000 years,
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
well,
Let's
Kurt,
let's preface this because there's two parts to this question. If you knew that you were going to live to 1,000 years, but everybody else still had their normal lifespan, but you, through some crazy, wonderful magic, was able to live for 1,000 years, would you change anything in what you're doing today?
first of all, screw everybody else. I only care about my own mortality.
Of course.
Oh my gosh. You sure you
Why?
haven't been drinking,
Exactly.
Annie? Come
No, I
on.
haven't. No, the thing that I would change the most is having terrible anxiety about my own near mortality for real. When I was 8 years old, this is true story. This
Okay.
may be TMI, but I'm going to tell you what happened.
That's what this is
All right.
about. There we
So
go.
I'm 8, and my parents had gone off on a trip to Egypt and Israel. So they're
Okay.
touring around there, and they'd gone for 3 weeks, and they left us with this babysitter. I could say her name, but I'm not going to out her.
Okay. Let's keep it above
But she
board.
was like 18, right? So
Ooh.
she decided, so I was a tomboy, and she decides that I'm like her doll. So she keeps wanting to curl my hair and like dress me up and stuff and everything. And I'm like kind of not into it because I'm a tomboy. And now she says she's going to take us to the Freedom Trail in Boston because we lived in New Hampshire. It's,
Yeah.
an hour. So she's planning a day trip for when my parents are gone. And but she wanted, like, she picked out a particular outfit and she wanted to like do whatever to my hair. And I really wasn't into it, and sort of, was like, being very stubborn. And she then proceeded to pretend she was dead.
What?
No, actually, this actually,
Wait a minute. Like, she just decides that her way of dealing with it is going to be to cack?
yes, on the living room floor, she was like, she
Oh my
pretended she was
gosh.
dead. So I was 8, I thought she was
For
dead.
how long? How long did she
Long
draw this
enough
out?
to scar me for
To scar
life.
you for the rest of your life. You
Yes.
remember this. Oh my
Because I still remember
God.
this. So she pretended she was dead for however long. Finally, she was like, "No, I'm actually alive, but I'll do that again if you don't." So anyway, my hair was curled, and I was wearing whatever dress she wanted me to wear.
Oh,
To
you
go to
gave
the
in.
picture.
It was it
Sure, like
worked.
I was
She's
terrified. I thought
8.
she was dead.
She's 8, Tim. Is she gonna go, oh, I'm gonna stand on principle here? Come on.
No,
Yeah.
I'm talking to Annie Duke. I thought that even, you'd
I
have
was
big
8.
brass balls even at 8.
I was trying, but then again, like she did pretend she was dead, which
Yeah.
I get this.
traumatized me.
So
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 anyway, since then, I could have ended up with this horrible fear of death anyway, but
Yeah. But
yeah.
so remedying your own mortality would be
Well, I
key.
mean, I would still be afraid of dying in 1,000 years, but I feel like I would have more room, you know?
That's quite a bit of room.
it's
A lot of
interesting.
room.
What about death is frightening at this point? I mean, what
Then
do
you're
you
not alive. Like, duh.
I get that, but it's
So,
a natural thing. This is I mean, and we just talked with Jody Weller or Wellman, excuse me, who wrote You Only Die Once, which is really
don't
about
send
like
me that book.
but it's really about using like this idea that hey, we're all gonna die. Let's make sure we live our lives.
Oh,
And
by the
and
way,
I
I'm totally on board with the second part of that. I'm just not
yeah.
on board with the first part. So
Would
I
it?
don't know. You know how people talk about your discount curve?
Yeah.
Mine is so far in the future, like, because all I worry about is like the end. And
Man.
Oh,
everything I do is around the end. It's true.
wow.
So given
But
that
I
you
think
now
it's
have,
genetic because my brother and sister are the same. Like we're all
yeah.
just all we do is think about 30 years from now.
So given the fact that now you have an extra 900 plus years,
I'm still worried about it.
you're still worried about the, but does that give you the obviously a much
Uh,
longer road to go down? Would you go, all right, now I want to
Wait,
focus
but I
in
have a
on,
question.
yeah.
Wait, this is serious. Do you remember the movie Death Becomes Her? And then also there's like a Greek myth or a Roman myth about somebody who asked for immortality but forgot to ask for youth.
Oh,
Like,
oh, I don't remember that one.
I
so
do
wait, is it
remember
a
that.
thousand years? But I'm like, I'm super decrepit. I'm just alive.
No, so this would be like you age. Oh, we haven't
Like, do
talked
I
about this.
not
This is a
age?
good
Like, I just
question.
get see
This
this.
would be like
Well, this is what happened. Like, you could look it up. So it's a Greek guy. Like, he was like, I want mortality, and the guys were like, sure, and they were like, but he forgot
but
to
I
ask for the
forgot about
not
the yeah.
right.
Oh.
Like,
No, you
screw
would
up
have
like
all
a
your
raisin.
faculties. You would at 999 years, you'd be like you were 99 years of humanness.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right. So I'm
yeah.
like aging at a tenth the speed.
Yes, there you go.
All right. Uh,
Does that change then? I mean, obviously it does, because yeah.
But that
yeah, I
means
don't.
you'd be older, like you'd have years 80, like you'd be 80 years old or 85 years old for like
You
100
know
years.
what's great about this? You get to live that long, and you don't need to like murder anybody and suck their blood to do it.
No vampire blood sucking
Oh.
required. Yeah.
No,
No,
no.
Right?
no.
Like
I
that's
like that.
awesome. That's a good thing. Look, it's the same thing. It's like you're always sad, right? It's like
Yeah.
then you're gonna outlive your kids.
Yeah, this is the part that like for
Yeah.
me, I'm like going, the idea that I'm outliving everybody, I think it has a component of, do I then know that I need to either do I double down on like hey, I'm gonna outlive my kids, but I need to really embrace them at this point so that I can remember this and do that, or do I get freaked out by that and like distance them so that the hurt when they pass away isn't something that is going to just
Well,
devastate.
I definitely wouldn't do that because I clearly regret that more.
I think
Yeah.
so. I think
Yeah.
that would be
For
that would
sure.
be there, but there's that
Yeah.
aspect of it. I don't know, Tim, what would you change? What would you change in if you
If
could
I knew
live
I
to
was
a
going to live for
thousand?
a
Yeah.
thousand years, I, 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 I might want to think about like what could I do in my life in those thousand years that might have a positive impact on the world. Like I don't want to sound like an incredible do-gooder here, but if I'm going to live for that
But
long,
you're really like, I was like, screw everybody else, and you're like, no, I want to save the world.
well,
No, Tim is
it's
just saying, how many beers can I drink before I, there
oh,
you go.
Like,
I'm
but like,
just
are you living through Armageddon? Like, what if the world becomes like a volcano? Are you just
yeah.
alive in the center of a volcano?
That's like, yeah, what the
Oh,
zombie apocalypse, and
That's the
you
thing.
are,
It's
yeah,
like there's all gotta right.
nuclear war,
Are you the
boom, and
or
you're
like
living
we're
there.
sort of imagining there's other people and you can form new relationships. Like, what if
Yeah.
yes.
every other human dies and then you're just left on some like boiling hot, like
Okay, so
apocalyptic planet?
that also sort of begs a question of would you definitely absolutely live to a thousand years regardless of what happens in the whole world? Like what if
No,
somebody comes up and shoots me in the head? Do I like instantly get healed and then
right?
because I'm going to live for a thousand years and I'm only gone
Oh my
558
gosh,
years?
we are over analyzing this. This was
I listen, it wasn't my stupid question. You guys
I
just
think it,
didn't
I think
think
it was
this through.
mine. I think it was mine.
You didn't
All
think
right.
this through.
Here's the here's well, actually, Tim, what would you, so you'd do good, but
Well, no, I
what
just want
would, like, what
like
would that look like?
well, I'm not sure, but it would be how can I use this personal experience, right? Because 150 years ago, I was alive when, you know, Trump and Kamala Harris were running for president. What, I could have that personal experience to bring forward. And
No one will
100,
listen to you, Tim.
That's the thing.
And it's not you personally, not you
yeah.
personally. Like nobody listens. Like we know what happened with the fall of the Roman Empire. Do you think it's stopping anything?
Yeah. I mean,
No,
this is the
you're
piece where it'd
No.
be
I
interesting
think
because
the way to go is nihilism. It's like your kids are dead. My dog is dead.
yes, yeah.
Everybody I ever loved is dead. I'm just a nihilist at that point.
see, this is where you put, all that money, you start investing the money and it's just the compounding. And so by that time you're a multi millionaire
Right.
and you just go and spend it on whatever you want, right?
Like
I
you could
mean,
try different stuff. Like you could spend a period being like a monk.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or so you could like there's a whole bunch of like there's all sorts of places where I think, oh, I kind of wish I had lived there.
Yeah.
That would have been great. And so you can just go live there because you know, 900 and something more years left, right? So I could
This
go
is
live
where
in
I
all
would
places.
love
And
I
there's
would
other
love to
careers I
study.
wanted.
Yeah, I would love to study things. I would just love
Yeah.
to be able to
Go be
like,
an archaeologist, you know.
yeah, study art
Oh,
history.
wait. No, that would be super meta because you could go be an archaeologist, but then you would be archaeologing your
Your own
own
life.
civilization.
Yeah, your own fear.
But
Yeah.
when, like,
And then
when
when they
800
showed you
years
some
ago.
weird thing and they didn't know what it was, and you could be like, "Oh, I'm analyzing this. This is what was called an iPhone, I think." They'd
This
be
is
like,
a
"Oh, you're
cassette
so
tape.
brilliant."
yeah, because the archaeologists 1,000 years from now are going, what the hell is this? And you
Like,
go,
what's
oh,
this? And you'd be like, "It's a bongo board."
So here's the alternative version
Okay.
of this.
Uh-oh.
You get
Oh,
to
no.
live to 1,000, but everybody else that you know right now, we're all living to 1,000.
Okay, that's a much better world.
Yeah.
I'm not a nihilist in that world.
yeah, okay.
Oh, okay. So what do you do? What do you change? Like, do you
Nothing.
get bored with your kids? Do you get bored with your
What? No.
spouse? Do you, is it
What kind
like,
of
oh,
psychopath are you?
come on, it's 800 years of the,
Wait, does my dog live for 1,000 years?
well, yeah, we can have your
Sure,
dog live to
dogs.
1,000. Sure, why
Yeah.
not?
My kitties?
Yeah.
Here's the problem with that world. So I think that for me, I probably don't change my behavior very much because I would be so terrified of dying when I was 1,000.
Yeah.
That I would continue the lifestyle that I have now, which is basically driven by fear of death. But I think other people would go, screw it, right? Because like they're going to live to 1,000. So people would be like chain smoking. I also think like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people would get depressed.
I think you're right.
Like they would have trouble finding meaning. Whereas for someone like me who's terrified of death, no matter when it comes, I can find meaning anywhere.
Yeah. There's something to that though, Annie. I
Yeah.
do think
Yeah.
that there's something about this, and we talked about we mentioned this. Jason Isbell wrote this, "If We Were Vampires" song
Yeah.
that basically talks about this idea that, hey, if we were vampires, we'd sit out on the sidewalk and smoke cigarettes, and I wouldn't feel the need to hold your hand, and I wouldn't, all of these things about the relationship. And he's like
Yeah.
saying, no, this idea that I only have 40 years or so with you makes every moment that much like I need to focus in on that. And there is something to be said that like that's why I was actually part of my kind of thing about like, oh, won't you get bored with your wife after, or your husband or whoever, or your kids, whoever that would be, after 800 years? I think there's something to
There'd
that.
be more serial monogamy.
Yeah.
Or not
Yeah.
monogamy.
Not monogamy. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like then it would just be a matter of like, how much do you distinguish between dying in 40 years and dying in 940 years,
And
right?
to your point, right? You would
Yeah.
still you believe that you would still have that same fear, might
Because I
be.
did when I was 8.
Yeah, well, there you go.
That's
Yeah.
why. Because like when I was 8, I was like, oh God, I'm gonna die someday.
And your damn babysitter is the one that was the
You know what? I
catalyst
think
for
that
that.
would have been, like I say, my siblings are like that anyway.
It just got triggered at an earlier age.
That was the
There you
moment
go.
where I remember I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. So I like to blame the babysitter, but I was probably kind of just
It's like I like to blame
temperamentally born that
the
way.
acne drug I had in high school for my baldness. It's like
Right.
yeah,
Like it's like,
there you go.
yeah, no, it's the babysitter. But
It does make for a good story though.
well, that's the thing. Like, what if sadist, man.
What
To be
are
fair,
the
she was only 17 and my parents did decide to leave an
that
8-year-old
is
alone with
true.
her.
Does that then, like, what were the changes in like parenting and different things over 1,000 years? And you get to see how society shifts in attitudes and perceptions. I don't know. There's something about that that's fascinating. But then I wonder if I'd just be the old grumpy man back in my day,
That's
you
true.
know.
Oh my God, it would be like boomers on steroids.
Kids these days, Lord, back
Could
Back
be.
in
800
my day,
years
we couldn't
ago.
teleport.
But I still love the like the Nobel Prize winning archaeologists, and when like in 850 years ago, how did how is it possible that this happened? It's like, well, when I was a kid, this is how we did it. And you'd have this perfectly rational explanation with the context of that was what happened in my life when I was, way back in 2000.
Yeah.
It'd be fantastic to have a
It'd be,
reference like
it'd be
that.
so great. You know how people now are like, oh, the 80s are coming back.
Yeah.
Now it would be like, it would be like, you know,
The
it would be like,
1900s are coming back.
it would be like 2480. And you'd be like, the 2080s are coming back.
Tim, if you could live 1,000 and everybody around you was living to 1,000, would that change? You still doing good in the world? You still trying to make a big difference, or
No,
do you
I don't
care
give a
less
shit.
about it then?
No, I just don't give a shit at that point. I think it's too hard. If everybody's on the same trajectory, I'm kind of with Annie. I don't know how or why I would change my behavior. Like
Right.
if everybody's on the same arc, it's like I'm just gonna go along with the status quo with me.
So, but I think with that, don't you think that society itself would change? I mean, if you
Well, wait a
have
minute.
that,
Can I
yeah,
just say something?
yeah,
I mean, first of all, don't you end up with like, I was gonna say emporiums of murder, because like, isn't the planet like super overcrowded?
that's a good, like, yeah. I mean,
If
Like, I'm just thinking
would
about, you
China's
remember
single
Soylent
kid
Green?
policy be
No, it's like
implemented?
Soylent Green, right? So like,
Yeah.
everybody's going along, and then it's like it's people, but they had the things where you could go and just off yourself.
in the scenario where everybody lives to 1,000, yeah, overcrowding.
Because people
Well,
are still having kids, right? Wait,
Right, but that
wait,
would be again.
is it only the people alive today that live to 1,000? Like, then are you motivated to have children? Because your children are, they're gonna be like, what the hell? You're living to 1,000. I've got to die at 80.
That's a whole nother scenario,
That
right?
we don't know because you weren't clear. Do
There's
your
there's
kids also, like, does everybody for now on live to 1,000, or is it just like somebody's like magically the people on the planet right now live to 1,000?
there was
If you have a
a
kid,
cosmic ray that came across
right?
the world, and
But
boom,
if you
you
have a kid
guys,
or you get a new dog, they're getting off.
they're often they're yeah. And then like, how do you get viewed by those people who are living and dying, and there's a whole society of people
That's right.
that are in, because now, well, we're ruling because we know better and we have all the power and we have all the money and all different things.
That's right.
That could be a very dystopian type
That
of a
it would be
world.
very dystopian. Like, what if you just don't want to live? Like, and I'm not talking about like you're depressed and like that kind of stuff, but like you're just like, no, I don't want to live for 1,000 years. Like,
Yeah.
and now I'm thinking about Clive Owen's film Children of Men,
see,
where nobody's
now
having
you're on my
kids.
page.
Yeah, nobody's having kids, and then all of a sudden,
Right.
one woman gets pregnant, and the whole world is on fire.
See, it's like the intersection of Soylent Green and Children of Men.
And Children of Men, yes,
But again, you
yes.
can look at this and you can go, all right, even if, all right, we all live to 1,000, our kids live to 1,000, we've changed the human race and we are now all able to live somewhere near that 1,000 year mark. And would that then, change how cities are developed? So we build up, and we don't go and expand into, and we have more public transportation because all of this, and we have to think about food sources and different pieces, and
Or
expanding to Mars and wherever else in the in the
Right.
solar system,
Yeah, what
and
other
all of
planets would
those.
we be living on in the next 500 years
We
if
would have
that was
to
the
because
case?
of overcrowding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know. And would there be like a lot of people who then go choosing not to have kids as as part of this
You know, it'd
because
be hilarious in that circumstance. It would not be a negative if someone running for president was 81 years old. I'd be like, oh, it's a
oh my
number.
God, actually it might be
He's
because
too
it would be
inexperienced,
like
too young to be
He's
81.
too
He's
president.
just a
young.
kid. What are you
Too
doing,
young, he
man?
doesn't
Is
even
he
know
even out of
anything.
is he even out
Not
of
even
diapers yet?
500.
Yeah. Yeah, but they reset that starting age at 350 years,
Right,
as opposed.
exactly. Like you have to have a little life experience under your belt.
Come on, you haven't even seen a century. What the hell are you trying to think,
So
you
what would
know?
what's a lifetime term look like on the Supreme Court?
Oh my
Oh my
God.
God, right. By the way, that might be the thing that gets term limits done.
Yeah, there you go. Term limits
No
on
more than
some.
200 years on the Supreme Court.
I mean, I'd still want 18.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like 18 a
Couldn't you
lot.
see like kids though, like the 80-year-old kids who are going, he's 900 years old. He doesn't have any clue as to
That's right. That's
our
right. Like
world,
he doesn't know.
Yeah.
Right. Now, this is of course assuming that the children don't die.
Yeah, that is
You have to
true.
remember
That
that.
we're
We
on the
have not
1,000.
clarified that.
Everybody is living to 1,000
We
years.
haven't
Yeah.
clarified that.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. It is
Okay.
these questions, they're weird, kind of fun things. But man, Annie, as you brought up, like all of the different, like, well, what about this? What about
Right.
this? And all of them make a very different
Well,
world,
and this
which
is the
then,
point of that Greek or Roman, whatever, the person who asked for mortality, they forgot to clarify.
yeah.
Like you have to be really careful. You've got to be like, okay, here's the situation.
Yeah, here it's the question to the genie, or the that
I will
request, and
say
like,
this.
yeah.
I do think that if everybody lived to 1,000, we still haven't clarified whether new kids die, which becomes a whole other thing.
Yes.
So let's set that aside. But if everybody on the earth today lived to 1,000, I could imagine that people might be better stewards. Even though that's irrational, right? Like it shouldn't matter. Except now they know, like in the time horizon within which the planet's going to be on fire, I'm going to be alive now.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to push back a little bit because I
Ooh.
think I'm afraid that that might only work for people who had originally planned on living to 80, 90, or 100 years old. That they would have this contrast. They'd have this differential. If you grew up in a world, if you were born into a world where everybody lives at 1,000, you might just think, we're going to figure that out. I'm not worried about it because we're all these climate issues, we're going to solve for those. I'm not worried. Everybody's going to live to 1,000, and
But
they
wouldn't
might not
you?
have the urgency.
Oh, but wouldn't you see, like, I think this idea that, yeah, but in 100 years, and I'm still around, the oceans are gonna rise by 8 feet.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, yeah,
gonna,
I
yeah,
think part of the problem is like when people say things are going to be really bad in 2040, nobody actually thinks 2040 is ever going to happen.
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
But if you knew you were going to live to 1,000,
yeah.
then it's sort of like saying this would be bad tomorrow.
That's true. 2040 is much.
Tomorrow in
I
that,
wonder how our perception of time would
right?
change by living that long. To your point, like, oh, like a 5-year plan seems really long now, but would it be a 50-year plan? Is that like now that's just like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
I think no, I think the world is too stochastic.
Yeah,
So I
Wall
don't think
Street, I can't imagine Wall Street going to, no, we'll just get earnings every 5 years.
yeah, no, I don't think that will happen. It's too,
Yeah.
yeah. But I was thinking like all the people who are like, you need to sleep 8 hours, you need to do this, you need to do that in order to expand your life, it'd be out of business. Because people would just be
There's
like,
a whole series of podcasts out there that would just like disappear, right?
disappear.
Yeah.
Be like, what are you smoking? And not in the metaphorical way, because I'll have some of that.
Truly inhaling. Yeah.
Kind of
Right.
wonder too, like again, as you think about smoking and like drugs and different things, it's like, all right, if I know I'm living and this is there, wouldn't that now psychedelics? It's like I have a whole bunch of time to kill. I might just be doing a psychedelic trip for a year or two because, hey, if you're, let's try it, right?
Yes, you've clearly forgotten about my abject fear of death.
Yeah.
That would be not on my list.
But you're living up to 1,000. Come on. It's like that could cure
I
that
told you it might
abject
as well
fear.
be tomorrow for me. Like I'm still gonna die.
All right. Well,
Okay.
Annie, thank you. This has thank you for taking time to answer our silly questions and have a conversation with us here because I don't know, it was fun. I'm hoping that people think it was fun too. So thank
I
you.
hope so. I don't know. I hope it wasn't too silly, but that's
We don't
that's
know.
where I'm at.